This is a Flipping Junkie podcast, episode 12. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. All right, we've got a great show for you today. I've got Mitch Steven from San Antonio here. He's does a lot of owner financing where he buys houses, sells them as is with owner financing to a homeowner that does the fix-up for him. Now, he gets payments every month and doesn't have to mess with the hassles of fixing up houses and dealing with picky buyers. So I'd say that's a pretty good thing. He's developed quite the system over the years, and today on the show he shares that system with us. So you're really going to want to listen in and take some notes. We also talk about Dodd-Frank and some of the other things to be aware of if you decide to venture into owner financing yourself. Now, I personally prefer to owner finance over having rentals because it's just a lot less hassles with doing that. So I hope you get as much out of this talk as I did, and I hope you enjoy the show. I'm super excited today to have Mitch Steven on the podcast. Now, he's been flipping houses in San Antonio for over 20 years. And over that time, he's managed to purchase over 1,000 houses. Now, he specializes in owner financing properties, and he's also the author of the series of books entitled My Life in 1,000 Houses. The first book is Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. Excellent book, tells about his story and his journey in real estate investing. And the second book that he released recently is 200 Plus Ways to Find Bargain Properties. And I'm told he's got a third one that's going to be coming out in February, I think is what he said, and it's The Art of Owner Financing. So the first two I've had and read, and excellent books, and I'll be looking forward to the third one. Now, just to show you a little bit about what kind of a guy Mitch is, you know, he's in San Antonio like I am. I want to share a quick story about how I got his first book. You know, I found out when it first came out, and I ordered it right away. And I didn't receive it within a day or two, and I was really anxious to get the book, you know, and honestly really just wanted to say hello to Mitch, so I called him up. And I told him I hadn't received the book, and, you know, it was in the mail, and I think I received it the very next day, but it didn't matter. He still actually drove 45 minutes to my house and personally delivered the book to me. So that shows you just what kind of guy he is. But, and now he's agreed to be on the show, so that's awesome. So thanks for joining us, Mitch.
Hey, Danny, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here. I that was a neat walk down memory lane. I didn't remember that story till you brought it up.
Yeah, yeah, I remembered it. I thought it was really cool. I thought that you would just tell me, hey, just wait, it'll be there, you know. And so, you know, I guess I ended up with 2 copies, so I was able to give another one to a friend. So just to say thanks again for doing that. And, you know, if you want to get started, just to let people know a little bit about you, now your first book, The Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, really talks in depth about how you got started. And it's a great read, too. It's a good story. It's not just dry. It's a fun story. It tells about the mistakes that you made and stuff like that. But you want to give our audience a quick talk about how you got started in real estate investing and why you started investing in real estate?
Well, it was probably the only thing I hadn't tried and failed at already. So it was like the best thing left for me to try to do. I actually didn't go into real estate in any kind of supernatural fashion. I was just trying to buy some rent houses, and then through a course of problems and disappointments and a lot of anxiety, the book is about the morphing from being a landlord into being the bank, being the owner financier, and dropping all those liabilities. So I fall down an awful lot in the book. A lot of people ask me seriously if I really wanted to put it out because I fall down a lot in here, and some people thought it was a little much, but I say, you know, it's the truth. That's what happens. So I mean, maybe some other people who are falling down a lot will appreciate it. It's really a book about getting back up, is what it is. So that's, you know, I wrote that one just to kind of catalog what my journey was after the Get Rich seminar, because the gurus are leaving a lot of things out. You know, when they talk to you about landlording, they don't go over, you know, how often air conditioners break in the state of Texas at 104 degree and how much they cost and what your likelihood when you have 20, 30, 40, 50 houses, how many are going to break that year.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's just one liability out of, I don't know, Danny, how many liabilities can you think of if you own a rent house? Windows, doors, roofs, carpet,
Yeah,
sink,
see, it's all those things that they
shower.
don't mention. So it's like everything, like, look at what this looks like on paper. That looks awesome. You should do it. And, when you introduce all those liabilities, the things that go wrong, and introduce people, tenants, into the mix, it becomes a different story. But
Yeah, that piece of paper, just those numbers don't tell you that unless someone's really pulling out a sheet where they actually showed you their expenses
right.
by the year. But anyways, so it's like you said, the first half of the book is autobiographical. The second half of the book is 18 stories that I'm not smart enough to make up that happened to me while I was out there in the field trying to, figure out the real estate game. So
Yeah, I always like those. I've got some crazy stories to tell too. It's always good to. Have you gone back recently and read some of those? Sometimes you forget them a little bit and you read them and you just still think that that's so crazy that that sort of thing happened to me.
yeah. I mean, every now and then, I always have a book sitting around on my coffee table for people who come over or whatever. I've got a couple books stowed away, and sometimes I just pick it up. But you know, I was so naive when I started writing my book that I figured I needed to write about 400 pages and then cull it down to about 325, and so I wrote 400 pages in 12-point font, and I actually wrote 800 pages. And
Wow.
I didn't know that's what I'd done. I could have been done like 2.5 years before I really finished. So the thing was I had 55 stories at the back. So I have another book coming out sometime probably. It's my life in a thousand more stories from my life in a thousand houses because I have about 20 more stories left over.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out too. So, you want to share with us what a typical day is like for Mitch Stephen nowadays?
Well, there's two different, with the preface nowadays. Nowadays, it's kind of a lot different and maybe not as helpful to other folks that are starting out. But nowadays, I get on my computer about 7:30. I answer my emails, do what I got to do, check in with everybody. Um, and I have a Thursday meeting at 12 o'clock with my office and my team who buys houses. This is one of the toughest real estate markets in the nation right now because we're booming so big. It is a seller's market, and even in a seller's market in 2015, I'm just a tad behind pace to buy 100 houses. My goal is to buy 100 houses. So in a very tough situation these days, we're still going to buy 100 houses. So I check in with my team every Thursday. That's 2 houses a week is what we kind of set our goal at, knowing that we won't make it every week. And
Right. So who are the people on your team? Like what are their roles? Like what you have an acquisitions person, just general staff.
I have
What?
4 acquisition people. I have 2 salespeople. I have my personal and longtime assistant, my daughter, Shannon Stephen, who closes every deal in and out for the last 20 years. And then we've got her an assistant now, and I have a full-time bookkeeper. So there's me, my daughter, who's my direct assistant, and her assistant, and the bookkeeper are the only ones on payroll. Everyone else is success driven, and I have very lucrative carrots in the right place for people to find me houses and to sell my houses. So I haven't seen the last 55 houses I bought. So
Right. Yeah. And you said you had 4 acquisitions and 2 sales. So 4 acquisitions, like people going out there pounding the pavement, finding deals, and then the sales people are the ones that are selling them after
yeah,
rehab, right?
yeah, they're either selling them owner finance or we're wholesaling them. About out of the 100 houses, 40% will get wholesaled because they don't fit my owner finance strategy, but that doesn't mean they're not a deal. So we don't turn down deals. We don't care we don't care how we have to profit from them, or what strategy we use. We just make sure if we can profit from them that we take them down. So 40% of them will get wholesaled. 10% will just get retailed in the traditional manner, put on MLS.
Okay, that was my next question. Right. Okay,
Yeah,
so about 10%.
yeah, and then the other 50% we're trying to owner finance. Now, I also have a relationship with a broker that if I can't buy the house, I list the house, and I get
Nice.
25% of her commission. If I can't sell someone a house, then my people refer to her to go to MLS and try to help them, and we get 25% of that commission. But that you have to have a license to get referrals. So there's someone in my office that has licenses. So that's how we do it.
Okay, great. And so,
actually, everyone has a license except for me.
Yeah, yeah. And the process of, there's a lot of investors out there, they hear a lot about the wholesaling, bird dogging, rehabbing, selling retail. There's not a whole lot of people talking about owner financing. Would you mind walking us through a typical sort of owner finance deal, from the purchase side, what type of property you're typically buying, what kind of rehab you're doing, and then the process of selling with owner financing?
Okay, well, a typical deal is like, the other day, one of the examples that stands out is, I think it was like around last year sometime. I bought a house for 15. I borrowed 17 at 8%, 5 years interest only. My payment's $114. Did you notice there, Danny, that I put $2,000 in my left-hand pocket?
Right.
Yeah, okay. And that's tax deferred money because it's borrowed money, and I don't have to pay tax on that $2,000 until some major event happens, like someone pays me off, or someone refinances, or I sell the note and get paid off. I pay myself off. So that's the first half, right? But you got to remember, this house, you can imagine a house at $15,000, it's not livable. As a matter of fact, I'll make it real short. You could stand in any corner of this house and see the other three corners. Okay, it was studded up, no flooring, no cabinets, no air conditioner, it was a shell. And even in the outside of the shell was an old, worn-out shell, not a nice shell. And so, because the greatest plan on the planet, in my personal opinion, is buy it, don't fix it, owner finance it for double, and watch the man who's making you payments go over budget fixing up your collateral. That is the greatest real estate strategy plan on the planet as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
How much time did I spend in rehabbing that plan, Danny?
Yeah, none.
How much risk do I have? How much of my materials can walk off, Danny?
All right, none, yeah.
Yeah, how many contractors can screw me in this plan, Danny?
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, and so what I do is I've essentially traded all those hours and all that risk of doing a rehab and just go find another freaking house.
Wow. See, I was under the impression that you were doing a lot of the fix-up, not yourself, but having somebody, contractors coming to do it.
I'm not telling you that I don't ever fix up a house. I bought a house down there underneath the Hemisphere Tower Needle in the Lavaca subdivision, and we bought it for $100. We're putting $100,000 rehab in it. It'll be worth $350. But it's a major thing. It's in a historical neighborhood. It's just the margin was so big that in the houses around it had gained the neighborhood so much momentum that I just wanted to be part of fixing up one of those houses right in the middle of all those other fixed up houses. And so I did it. I haven't done $100,000 rehab and I don't know when.
Yeah. Yeah, those are exciting. The ones down in the historic districts with the values going through the roof and everything. But you had talked about, so for the owner finance, like the cheapies, some of the lower end properties that you're owner financing, do you do any of the fix up on any of those, or are they all strictly sold as is? The
plan is not to. I'll put them up for 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks and see if I can move it the way I want to. If not, I have to put more money. I have to put, just as an example, then I got to go put $10,000 into something. And I got to mark up the house $20,000, and so I've got a higher price point, and I've got all that risk. I fixed the house, and I depending on where the house is, you worry about vandalism or theft, or while it's sitting there vacant, and so, I've rehabbed, my share of houses. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses I've rehabbed. I choose to maybe take out the trash, maybe mow the yard, maybe after a week or two of just letting it sit. But most of the time, I sell my house owner finance with the dog doo-doo on the carpet, the cat litter box still tumped over in the kitchen, and the weeds still up to about my waist. And what it allows people to do is come in and with smaller down payments. See, my market gets really big now because I don't take that big of a down payment when I ask for that, because I leave them their money and their resources to put into the house. But you got to be prepared, if you do this plan in really rough houses, to maybe have to offer the house for sale 2 or 3 times, but you'll notice the price goes up. The first guy goes in, he gets about halfway through the rehab, he quits. Now, instead of trying to sell it for $30,000 owner finance, you're selling it for $42,000 owner finance, and then that guy comes in and gets part of the way and he quits, and now you're selling it for 56,000 owner finance, you know. And
right. What percentage do you think of times does that happen for some of those properties? Like roughly.
A lot less than it used to, because I vet the people a lot harder now. I would rather spend the time up front trying to decide if this is the right guy to fix the house, i.e., do you have some money in the bank? You know, why do you think you can fix this? What do you do for a real job? You know, oh, you're a carpenter and a roofer. Okay, I get it. You know,
I bet you've seen some botched up stuff then with some of the early ones, right?
well, no, you have to, like, if there's foundation or roofs or both, you have to lay it out to them in what order they have to do it in, and that they have to pull permits on things like foundation, electrical, and roof.
Right.
And so, you know, but you talk to a person to see if they have that wherewithal. Or is this the kind of person I really need to tell this to? Because if it is, maybe I should think twice. But, you know, and then you get people that are wealthy engineers that work for, you know, that work downtown, and they're trying to do some rent houses, and you know, they got $50,000 in the bank, and this is going to be their 15th house, and you know, they're friends with the guys down at the cities where they pull the permits. Okay, different kind of guy. I got it. You're in.
Right. So how are you I know it's probably a house by house basis, but is there any kind of rough formula for determining how much you're going to sell one of those for, as is owner financed?
Yeah, it's not even rough. It's exact. You know, you figure out what the rent is, which is not hard to do. You know, that's the easy. You don't even need to be a member of MLS or anything. Just get on Rental Meter or Zillow or Trulia or all three of them. Figure out what the rent is, subtract the taxes, subtract the insurance, and multiply what's left over by 100, and that's how much your buyer can afford to finance. That's how much they have for principal and interest. You know, so 750 minus 50 insurance minus 100 in taxes equals $600. 600 times 100 is 60,000. As if I needed a calculator. 600 equals 60,000. I don't even need to multiply by 100. I can do it in my head. If you use the terms 10.5% in 20 years, that will work. 600 equals 60,000, give or take a couple dollars.
Right. So 10.5% interest amortized over 20 years.
Yeah. When you use it like that, you can look at the numbers and tell what the payment is, or you can look at the payment and see what the balance is. 600 equals 6,000. 700 would equal 70,000. 7,200 or $720 left over meant they could finance 72,000. So and now, so that's what they can afford to finance. So what is the owner finance value? And I didn't say the value. I said the owner finance value. It's a completely different value. It's not the MIA value. It's not the BPO, brokerage professional opinion value. It's not the CMA, current market analysis done off of MLS recent sales. It's not that value. I don't care about those values. I don't need those values. I might look at them just to see, just like I might look at what the house is taxed at by the tax assessor collector for the property taxes, but it doesn't mean anything, because we don't need appraisals to sell houses owner financed. So I need to make it worth it. The only thing that you have to believe the owner finance strategy works is you have to believe that a person paying $950 rent would rather pay $950 to own. Do you believe that, Danny?
Oh yeah.
And if you don't, get out. Don't do this. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't have to do with interest rate. It doesn't have to do with anything. The big question is, can you buy a house, and can you do whatever it is you're going to do or not do to this house, and move it over to a person who's paying $950 rent, who would rather pay $950 to own.
All right. And so you still determine that sort of calculation for even like the first example with the house that was basically a shell.
Well,
on the inside.
But I had to, no, on that one, I didn't really, on the house that was a shell, and I was going to say that this is really a formula for houses that are more ready to move, or rentable, right. Or pretty much rentable, ready to move.
Right.
I mean, maybe clean them up, but. So on the other one, I bought a house for 15. I borrowed 17. I thought, what's the chances I could owner finance this for 38 with 3,000 down? I said, I think the chance is pretty good. But even if I only finance it at 30 with 1,000 down, I'm still a winner. I'm a big winner. So I tried it at 38,000 for 3,000 down, and a guy came and bought it. But let's back up a second, because I didn't finish that formula on how you establish the value. We had 750 minus 50. Minus 100 for insurance is 600. 600. If they have 600 a month for principal and interest, it means if you use the terms 10.5% in 20 years, they can afford to finance 60,000. If they can afford to finance 60,000, what is the owner finance value? Add 10 to 12% on top. So in this case, 10% would be 6,000 on top. So it'd be 66,000 is the owner finance value. But since we're not crossing a threshold, and since I don't need an appraisal, I'm going to go ahead and push this to 69 or 69.9 so that I have $3,000 or $4,000 worth of bargaining chips that I can just give away.
Right.
Sometimes I give them away, sometimes I don't. And so now we move on to the sale. So in my example where I bought the house all in for 15 and borrowed 17, my payment's 114 a month. I borrowed the money at 8% interest only for 5 years. By the way, if you're a guy out there that has been thinking about wanting to own or finance houses, but then you figure out that it's really work, like most people do figure it out pretty quick, that, you know, this is not as easy as they're making it. If you really want just a passive income, you know, I borrow money at 8%. I give people a first lien on this house. And as you're listening to the example of how it goes, ask yourself how you feel about having a first lien at 8 and making 8% on the deal I'm fixing to describe. So I went and I sold the house in about a week. Did not even mow the yard for $38,000 with $3,000 down. The guy I talked to said he lived across the back fence, that his house, you know, the fence separated my house and his house in the backyard, and that he was a contractor and a roofer. And so I leased him the house. I gave him a lease and told him that as soon as I saw the interior, the exterior finished and painted and the interior finished and painted, I would go down and make him the taxpayer of record. You know, I would file his mortgage with a deed of trust down at the courthouse to make it official. Until then, he was just had a non-refundable lease, $3,000 non-refundable, and we mapped out what he was supposed to do. And within about 4 months, he finished the inside of that house with cabinets and doors and sinks and countertops and tubs and tile and shower heads and electrical outlet covers and switches and light fixtures and everything but the AC, which is fine with me. He brought that house from being worth a little of nothing to probably $59,000.
Right, so that's a win-win for everybody on that one.
Yeah. So
now,
look at the guy who loaned me the $17,000 in the first lien position. You think he's pretty safe?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lien for $17,000 on a house that's now worth $59,000. We didn't know what it was worth at first, and if he would have drove by and looked at it, the private lender would have looked at it. He might have thrown his hands up. He might have known what it was worth. But it's my job and my profession. I do know what it's worth. It's worth a lot more than that. I never know exactly what things are worth, but I know really close. And so right off the bat, I proved that it was worth $38,000. And then the guy went and did all the work and moved it up to what I knew was somewhere around $59,000 to $65,000. So now this private lender's position has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger with every day that passed.
Right. So, and some people listening might not understand how that works, where when you got a loan to purchase the property, and then you leased it, and then you turned it into an owner finance sale after he had gone to a certain point. So how did you owner finance it to him if you had a loan already on the property? Some people don't know how that works. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, it's the difference. It's a large difference between banks and private lending. Now, I have been to banks where they gave me a line of credit or gave me a loan with the explicit idea and knowledge that I was going to wrap the mortgage, which means wrap the mortgage. What you want to do is you want to set up your underlying debt that you're buying your houses with. You want permission from that lender to allow you to wrap the mortgage, which means essentially sell the house to someone else in a second position for a higher amount of money. And so I bought the house for, I bought the house essentially and borrowed $17,000. I owe $114 a month to my private lender. My private lender, in the documents that we signed when he loaned me the money, gave me permission and stated that he understood that I was going to wrap this mortgage with another mortgage. What was the other mortgage? I sold it to my buyer at $38,000 with $3,000 down, meaning there was a $35,000 loan still left on the property in the second position. So essentially, my buyer occupant inside the house was making me a payment of, $600, or I'm sorry, $350. And
So you're getting you're getting the
hold on,
difference.
Danny. I didn't do this. This was such a small amount of money. I did this loan at 12% for 12 years, and the payment was 450. Okay, so my guy was making 450 to me, and I was paying out 114.
Right.
So that's what happens in a wraparound mortgage. The person in the second position that's living in the house makes a payment to me of 450. I owe a payment to my lender at 114, and I get to keep the spread. And the spread's around 300 and some odd dollars. What, 326?
Yeah, I don't try to do math on air. I just
it's $326. Yeah. So do you
right.
see where I got, Danny?
Right, you got cash flow, and you don't have to fix toilets. You don't have to pay the property taxes. You don't have to pay insurance.
It's bigger than that, Danny. I got more than cash flow. I picked up $2,000 when I bought the house and $3,000 when I sold it. I picked up cash and cash flow. I got paid. I paid myself $5,000 to create a $326 positive cash flow, of which I have no liabilities.
Right.
Right. So last but not least, do you think I can sell a $35,000 note when the property is valued at $59,000 to $62,000? Do you think I have to discount my note to sell that note and get all my money?
Mm-mm.
No, I didn't. And in 6 months, I not only had the $5,000 up front and had 6 months worth of payments of $450, which I think is around $1,800 or a little over $2,000. So I collected $2,000 there, and then I picked up the difference between 35 and 17, which is what, another $18,000. So nice. I found a house for 15, and I ended up collecting 2,000, 3,000, 2,400, and 18,000. How much is that? 5, 23, $26,400 I made in 6 months off a house I bought for 15.
And didn't have to fix up.
And I didn't mow the yard.
Right. Nice. I wanted to ask you one question. Now, you said you typically sell the owner financing. Like you said, this one was different because it was a lower amount. You amortized it over 12. So some people might be asking, like you said, the typical one, I think you said, was 10.5% at 20 years. What's the benefit of doing it over 20 versus the 30 years?
Well,
to both you and the buyer.
It's not a benefit. It's not whether it's a benefit or not. It's just a choice. When you're young in the business, you need your cash flow to move up quickly so you can quit your job or get a gun away from your head every month about paying your bills. So the shorter you have a note, the higher your spread will be between what you owe and what you collect, because houses on shorter notes have higher payments.
Right.
So in the beginning, you'd want to keep your notes as short as possible. Me, I don't need cash flow. I mean, I'm not desperate anymore for that. So I would rather have the 30-year loan and keep my note. I'd rather make $50 less per month and keep my note for 10 years longer. And so I do 30-year notes, but I talk to people in terms of it as if, they're not financially independent already. Because if you're not financially independent, you want to
get more money.
You want more cash flow.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that there's, have you seen a difference though within the number of people that, you have to foreclose on at the longer 30-year because they might pay for several years and then look and see how much they've paid down and it's a little bit easier for them to walk away from it? No,
I find more foreclosures in the shorter years. Their payment's higher and their chance of failure is greater because you made their payment higher. People get in a routine of making that house payment and they get settled in. Very few people say, wow, it's been 10 years and I've only paid down, $8,000 on my note.
Right.
Very few people say that. If anyone ever says it to me, I just say, well, then quit making a payment of $650 and start making a payment of $750 and watch what happens.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing that says that that's the only payment they can make. They can pay it down as a 20-year with the 30-year note and have it end that much sooner and save all the interest if they want to, but they don't have to. Now, what I wanted to move on just a little bit into the marketing part of it, finding these deals and finding all of your deals. Obviously, you talked about, the goals of getting 100 deals a year, and with this competition being so insane, you're still on track to do that, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, you share a lot of that, if not all of it, in your book. The 200 plus ways to find bargain properties. in the My Life in 1,000 Houses series. But when some people see the 200 and they read it, it's awesome, great information. But some people might feel a little overwhelmed when they see so many strategies. They don't know really where to start. Could you share with us maybe 2 or 3 of your favorite strategies that you feel are best to start with to get the most bang for your buck?
Well, like you said, my strategy might be different because I'm in a different place and I have a different sophistication and I have a different amount of cash flow. I mean, I spend $8,000 to $10,000 a month.
But for people that may be starting on a shoestring budget, that they want to get some traction, want to get some leads, are there 2 or 3 of your favorite sort of techniques to use that don't require a whole lot of money, maybe take a little bit more time, but generate a good amount of leads?
Yeah, sure. When you don't have money, if you're going to be successful without money, then you're going to trade money. You're going to trade knowledge and time for money. And so what you do in those cases, and I tried to put my book in just that order that you're talking about. I started out with things that were basically free, the things that you pay for one time and they work 365 days a year, and then into things that you have to have a monthly budget for. And then they range from reasonable to crazy expensive, like cable TV ads and stuff, Mm-hmm. So I mean, the simplest thing, and I always find that when you get out there and start moving around, that's when everything happens. So get out in the field and watch what happens. Start driving for dollars and looking for abandoned houses. It's still one of the best things on the planet.
Absolutely. And that involves, just for the people that might not know, what exactly does driving for dollars?
Driving for dollars, just get in your car and go to, the part of town you think you can afford to buy houses in, and drive up and down the streets and take a picture of the house with the address, where you can capture the address either on the mailbox or on the side of the house, and then type in the street name underneath it and go to the next house. And if you do that for about 8 hours in my town, you can collect about 100 to 120 houses that are vacant. And these are excellent places to start.
Now, are you just choosing only vacant houses or houses that you're not really quite sure if they're vacant, but they look pretty run down? Do you include those?
Of course, but I make a mark next to the ones that may be occupied. And,
okay.
And then I've talked to mailmen and got them to just do it for me. Like I make friends while I'm doing that. If I see a mailman, I'll call him over and say, "Look, here's my card. This is what I want you to do. Send me a picture of every vacant house you ever see, and write the address underneath of it and text it to me. I'll put your name and my phone number if you agree, and you put my name and phone number in your phone if you agree, and I'll have a list of every house you ever referred to me. And if I buy it, I'm going to bring you $500." And try to, so you're starting off immediately, even though you're doing the work yourself, you're starting off immediately trying to build a team that works while you're not.
Yeah, and what's awesome too about driving for dollars and beating the streets is whenever you see a house being rehabbed, you can go in there and see what kind of work they're doing, get the card for the contractor, and start building your list of potential contractors to do rehabs for you too.
Yeah, dealing with contractors is a whole chapter in itself.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah. We won't get into that, but it's like other things you can do while you're driving for dollars that really will build your. When
you see that vacant house, if you're really interested, I mean, knock on the door or leave a card and ask the people to the right and the left to call you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do that, you're going to have to mark down what you have to,
Yeah, and most people will not do that. So there could be 20, 30 people driving that neighborhood looking for these vacant houses. But I'll tell you what, there's either one or none that are getting out and knocking on the neighbor's door.
Yeah, the rule is 2 houses to the right, 2 houses to the left, and 4 houses across the street. So, that's 8 houses. There's not a lot of people that, the people who are successful in this business are not lazy. I'm telling you right now. That's why I pointed out at the beginning. If this isn't, if after you read the book or you go to the seminar and you think this isn't for you because it's just going to take work, then maybe you become a private lender for someone like me or Danny or somebody, whoever you think is honest and going to, make their payments to you, because it's a very secured position. So,
absolutely,
it's work. And the ones and it's just like any business that you start when you're new businesses, it takes 2 years to get them off the ground, and it takes everything you've got. to do it, especially if you're part-time. There's no business that starts off right off the bat. Typically, in the first months or year that you get involved. Now, I've seen people jump into real estate and make $100,000 on their first house. Probably the worst thing could have ever happened to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, expect it to always be that way and find out it's not, you know.
They think,
right. Well, part of that
is invincible, divorce the husband, say, I don't need you anymore. Find out that it was pure luck. It's like those guys that win that you give the fake lottery ticket to, you know? And they cuss the whole family out and say, I don't need you guys. Then the family informs them that the ticket's false.
Oh, man. Yeah. This is not good. All right, so the driving for dollars, and then any other, like, you know, how do you feel about bandit signs? Most people will name off bandit signs. How do you feel about bandit signs?
You know, I bought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses off of bandit signs, but I think they're largely being ignored now because of overuse and lack of service from those signs from people who were half-heartedly in the business. I don't think those signs have a good reputation right now for that. Bandit signs are still the greatest thing on the planet to sell your house, but there's either so much competition or the perception of those signs when you're trying to sell a house is that you're going to run into some guy who's going to try to scalp you. And I think we just put out 600 and didn't get the kind of response. So either the sign company is taking them down faster than we think, I mean the sign police, or they're becoming ineffective. So one of the things I do is I like to mail or even keep some postcards that I use to mail in my car so that when I see a vacant house, I can deliver the postcard. And one of the reasons why I want to deliver the postcard is because I use a company called livecom.com, LIVECOMM.com, and they allow me to buy phone numbers, and I can do all kinds of things with these phone numbers. But one of the things I can do is I can send the phone number to a recording. But when they call that recording, I capture the phone number of the person who called to listen to the recording. And so when you're trying to when you're trying to buy a house, you may only get one shot to connect with this person. And let's say you, Danny, mailed out your postcards and they hit on Tuesday, and the wife went out, picked up the mail on Tuesday and drops your postcard on the dining room table, pays no attention to it at all. The husband comes in after bowling league at 11:30, sits down to have his last bourbon and water before he goes to bed, and he's looking at the card on the table, and now it's 11:45 at night, and he picks up the card, and there's two phone numbers on that postcard. One phone number says, call Mitch Stephen directly, and the other one says, recorded message. If he's going to make one of those calls that night, Danny, which one do you think he's going to call?
Yeah, the recorded message.
Yes, he's going to call the recorded message, because no one's ever going to call you directly at 11:45 at night.
Well, that's an awesome tip, because I've heard about doing either one, but I don't know that I've heard about having both on there. So that's a good point. Yeah.
So also, here's a nice little tip for you when you start out. Use a code name. Like on my postcards, my middle name is Dale. So when I mail out postcards, if they want to call someone and talk to them directly, you call for Dale. And here's his cell phone number. Well, when people call me and ask for Dale, I know that's a postcard. I say, Dale's not here right now, but I can help you with anything you want. My name is Mitch. How are you doing? What's your name? And then when I'm dropping stuff off, when I drop stuff off, or use some other technique, I might use a different name like Steve. You know, if someone asks for Steve, I know that, you know, he got me out of Craigslist. And, you know, so you can have as many names as you want. Same old things, you know. Steve's not here right now, but I can help you. My name's Mitch. How are you doing?
Right. It's a good way to keep track of what marketing that you're doing is performing.
Now, if you use something like LiveCom, which the phone numbers are only like $2 a month, I mean, you can have something that absolutely will track for you. I have different LiveCom numbers on my, but here's the point. The guy calls the recording for one of two reasons. One is because it's too late at night, or it's Sunday morning too early, or whatever, but he's not going to call you during that time. So he calls the recording. The system captures the phone number, and it's up to you to get back to them. But at least you have the number. He may listen to the recording and have thrown it in the trash can. That would be the last time you'd ever have the chance to meet this guy. And because you had a certain kind of phone system that captured the numbers and let you know, then you have this chance to buy a house that no one else has. And it's all about putting yourself in the middle of the road. We like to say, I've drilled this into my company's head and culture. You can't get hit by the money truck if you're not standing in the middle of the road. So every chance you get to move closer to the middle of the road is the better off we are. And having that extra number with a recording moves me more into the center of the road to get squarely hit by the money truck.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. That's a good advice on that one. I wanted to talk about, you had mentioned before about in your book, in the first book, The Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, you discuss a lot of mistakes that you've made, and we all make mistakes. People hear about successful house flippers, and they think it was an overnight success and never typically hear about what it took to get there and all the mistakes that were made. And some of us make bigger mistakes than others, but what's one of the bigger mistakes that you've made that you could tell us about that hopefully we could help other people avoid?
Well, in a tangible sense, I can tell you the biggest. In a financial sense, that I can really point to the numbers. The biggest mistake I made was buying raw land right before recession and having to hold it at the tune of $8,000 a month for the next 2.5 years because of buying raw land.
Can you repeat that a little bit? Because it sounds like you moved away from the mic. It was kind of...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hard. Yeah.
I was sitting here talking into my phone, thinking, walking around. I forgot we're not on the phone. Sorry. The biggest mistake I made was buying some raw land right before a recession. Of course, I didn't know there was going to be a recession, or didn't guess. And having to hold on to that land to the tune of $8,000 a month over the next 2.5 years till the markets changed and I started selling it off slowly. It took me 4 years to actually get rid of it. So
Ouch.
For the first 2 years, no one stepped on it, and even no one would even look at it. And so that was $8,000 a month for 2 years, and then it started to cut back down a little bit and a little bit and a little bit for the next 2 years. So I suppose it probably cost me, $400,000 or something by the time that mistake was over.
Oh.
The good news is it didn't sink me. It really, really didn't change my lifestyle that much because I had been done very well in the last 20 years about taking my cash and buying assets with it. So while I had made a big mistake, I had made a ton more smaller good investments, a ton of small good investments, a ton of them that while it's not fun to look at that money on paper, I even hate it. I even have to review it today because I'm trying to block it out, Dan.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. And that would have crushed a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what was the lesson there? The lesson was when you can't sell raw land, it's very difficult to make the raw land pay for itself. If I'd have stayed with my houses and I couldn't sell them, I could have rented them. I could have done something with them because there'd have been a structure on them.
Right.
The raw land is just like an alligator. It just takes a bite out of you every month, and there's nothing to do about it. It's an all or nothing proposition. Was I in my plan? I was supposed to make $1 million. In reality, I lost 400,000. So that was the tangible, case study I could tell you where the real mistake in my life was made way early on. Early on. I did not find a personal mentor until 4 or 5 years into my business where I was almost getting out of the business because it was beating me so bad. It was just like the real estate investment business was, good on a couple occasions, and then I'd get beat with a baseball bat for another 4 months, and then it'd be good on, I'd make a strike, and then I'd get beat with a baseball bat for another 60 days, and so my biggest mistake was not getting someone on my side that was really what I needed and who I thought they were. And that game of getting a mentor is a tricky game too.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. How did you find a good mentor?
Well, I found how I did it was I became really, I mean, I was good at finding houses. If you can become good at finding houses, you can pick your mentor. You just go to your local community and find out who's the badass in town, and tell them you want to bring them deals, and that you want to partner with them. And it'll look like a business relationship, but it's really a business relation plus mentorship relationship if you've got your ears open and your eyes open and you're doing business with a guy. So that's how I figured it out. And then later on, I paid for mentors, which again, I was about to go bust on something. And that's actually how I found my first guy. So
was paying for mentorship?
Yeah, when I had 25 rent houses that were killing me, I paid someone 10 grand to tell me what I was doing wrong and how I get out of it. I didn't want to know what I was doing wrong. I wanted out. And he says, you're not going to get out, but this is how you straighten it out. And he didn't teach me what I wanted him to teach me. I wanted to get out. But the houses that I bought, and then in the neighborhoods that I bought those houses, nobody at the time was able to qualify for a loan, or even the house wouldn't qualify for a loan. So getting a loan wasn't an option to sell them and to get out of the business. So he told me that I just need to owner finance them and collect $3,000 down per house, and then make the payments on the house about equal or greater than what I was collecting for rent. And that includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
Wow. So knowing that now, looking back, do you think that $10,000 that you paid for that was worth it?
Well,
absolutely, right? I mean, you just changed everything that you did.
When I paid the $10,000, it might as well have been $1 million, because it was my last $10,000, and I was going backwards from my renters killing.
But still worth it. You'd do it over and over again, I'm sure, right?
No, I would pay $100,000 for that.
Right.
To be worth it.
Right.
Just like, and this is what I've been trying to tell people: if you don't know how to raise private money, and you don't want to pay someone $10,000 or $15,000 to teach you how to raise private money, you're crazy, because learning how to raise private funds to buy any deal you want for the rest of your life is worth millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. If you paid $100,000 to someone who would actually solve that problem for you at the end of 2000, by the end of 2000, or by this time next year, you would have solved that problem, that you would never have to worry about money again, and where you're going to get it and what rate you're going to have to pay and all that. If you solve that problem in the next 12 months, you're a multi-millionaire in waiting. The only thing left to do is figure out how to find deals. And that's like teaching a dog how to chase a bone. I mean, it's not, it's not that hard to find deals if you apply yourself. Just think about it. If your life's endeavor was to buy 50 houses, and you started when you were 30 or 20, or if you started when you were 50, how long do you really think it's going to take once you get the hang of it? I say in my examples that I average $350 per month positive cash flow. I really am underselling that. I really average $450 per month. So at 10 houses, I profit per month. I mean, my spread, my cash flow is $4,500 on 10 houses. And I got paid to do that. On average, I get paid $8,000 a house to create the positive. So 10 houses means I put $80,000 in the bank, and I increase my cash flow from $0 to $4,500 per month. How many $4,500 per month do you need to quit your job and take a vacation when you damn well please?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then don't forget this. In the example I just gave you, I average about $8,000 between, up front, between, what I get when I buy the house, what I get when I sell the house, down payment, and my cash flow is around $450. But what that story doesn't tell you is along the way to trying to find the owner finance houses, I find houses that don't fit the owner financing model, or in places I don't want to go. Mm-hmm. I.e., I found a house, it's a great price, the neighborhood's okay, but there's a crackhead living on the right side of the house, and I don't want to fight that. It's a losing battle. They don't care. And so I'll say, I'm just going to wholesale that house. And I might pick up 7, 8, 10 grand on that house. Already today, this year, Danny, I've wholesaled enough houses to put $365,000 in the bank. This is not the money that I would make, the $80,000 I'd make on 10 houses, on 10 houses that I'd put in the bank. That's in addition to my owner finance strategy money. So when you're looking at the owner finance strategy money, don't think, well, the only way I get paid is if I borrow some when I buy and I get the down payment. That's the only way I feed my family, at the end of each month until the cash flow gets built up. No, that's not true. There's houses and things that you wholesale for cash.
Right. Right.
You can make some money doing that too. So there's, you can't, no matter what strategy you have in the real estate, the real estate arena, wholesaling has got to be part of that strategy. It's just got to naturally be part of it. There's wholesaling, and then there's everything else. Everyone's
especially, and especially in a market like we're in right now, there's so many investors dying for deals that they, are paying crazy amounts. It just makes sense to wholesale something. A lot of times.
You know how I wholesale stuff? If I can get it done fast enough. I had some houses that I bought that weren't what I thought. That there was, everyone's done it. You buy the house and then, didn't think to ask about that, didn't look over here, didn't, anyways, there's something pops up. I foreclose on myself, Danny. They're paying so much at the foreclosure auctions. I hired a trustee to foreclose on my trust, and I take my house down to auction, and I'm cashed out of that son of a gun in 48 hours. I foreclose on myself and watch these people coming from China and San Francisco and California paying so much damn money for junk that I said, you know what? I'm going to sell my houses. I'm going to sell my problem houses right here. And I sold my problem houses and made money, good money, way more than I thought I would have made.
Yeah, awesome strategy. I wanted to before we start to close out here, I've been meaning to ask you something because, a lot of what you do is the owner financing, and there's a piece of legislation that came up not too long ago called Dodd-Frank. And how has that affected you with the selling of houses with owner financing?
Well, what it really did for me is it eliminated all my competition, because all my competition got scared and ran. They were saying things like, they've made it against the law to owner finance houses, or, they've made it impossible to owner finance houses. And I go, yeah, they sure have. And then I just kept owner financing housing. Because what I did was I went and learned how to conform. And at first it was kind of scary, and I thought it was going to be this big deal. And of course it was a change in how I was doing business. But here's the thing. I either have to have a residential mortgage loan originator's license, an RMLO license, or I have to hire someone. The state of Texas allows me to hire someone that has a license to put me in my buyer. Because I guess in all their infinite wisdom, these legislators deem that I'm not smart enough, integral enough, and honest enough to put together a mortgage for someone on my own property, that I got to hire someone to do that now. So
right. And so do you want to explain what that is? I mean, as far as conforming to what? So this is all about making sure that you're qualifying people to be able to pay, for the house that you're selling them, right?
Yeah, and that's one pretty much the gist of it? The thing is a kabillion pages long. We could talk about it for 1,000 years. I'm going to shortcut this for you, but I'll humor you for just a second and say, yeah, now when you sell a house to someone, you have to have a reasonable reason to believe they can make the payment. There's not a percentage of their disposable income that's spoken about. There's not, it just says you have to have a reasonable reason. So that reasonable reason could be, I don't know where he gets his money because he's an illegal alien and he doesn't have a bank account and he gets paid cash. But my reasonable reason for thinking that he can afford the house is he lives in an apartment down the street and pays $1,000 a month, and he's been there for 2 years. And the manager just sent me this letter right here. You see it, Your Honor, that says that he hadn't been late in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's my reasonable reason to believe he can make a payment. I don't know where he gets his money, but he's getting it from somewhere. Now that's the most extreme case. That's out of the box thinking to just what it says. The other thing is, you have to give cooling off periods. You have to present certain kinds of documents to explain to them what their interest is and truth in lending. And it's not just Dodd-Frank. If you're talking to someone about the regulations for owner financing houses, then you better be talking to someone who A, read Dodd-Frank, who B, read the SAFE Act, who C, read the Finance Reform Act, who D, read the your state's property code, also read Truth in Lending, and also read RESPA docs, and probably a couple of other more things. And if they haven't read all of that and laid it over top of each other, they have no business commenting on your business. None. Zero. Period. So here's how you shortcut all this. You find an RMLO in your town or in your state, or someone who's licensed in your state. You call them up and you negotiate a price that you agree on for their services, and then you sit down for 30 minutes or 40 minutes and you listen to what he tells you have to do, and then you just do it. End of story. Go buy houses. Go sell houses. That's all you do. Hire an RMLO, agree on a price, learn what he needs you to do, continue on with your business. Period.
Nice. All right. And the last thing I want to ask you is, I know that you've coached plenty of investors over the years. And one thing I do like to ask about, of people that have done that is, have you noticed any common traits in the people that actually succeed versus those that don't? Like anything that's blatantly obvious where you can tell pretty quickly when you talk to somebody whether they sort of have something that others don't.
Absolutely.
That can help them to succeed.
I mean, they're just running through my head right now. Number one, they don't complain about anything. The ones that I know, they don't complain about anything. If something happens, they look in the mirror and they say, hey, how am I going to stop this from happening next time? Not, did you see what that person did to me? They never complain. They take full responsibility for themselves, 100%. Number two, they are enthusiastic. They're on fire with it. Number three, and this is a big one, they've usually have had enough. And I call it the had enough barometer. It starts from 0 over on the left, and it's got this needle that goes like a clock spinning all the way over to 3 o'clock on the right. And on the right is red line pegged. And so when I'm looking at their I've had enough barometer, it's usually pegged over here at 3 o'clock in the red, meaning I've had enough of this crap. I'm not letting people tell me what to do anymore, and they're not going to be in control of my finances. I'm tired of people telling me when I can go on vacation. I'm tired of have to beg someone to go so I can pick up my kid because they're sick. I'm tired of having to ask someone, can I go watch my kid's championship soccer game in Dallas this weekend? I need to take the 3 days off. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of that. I've had enough. And that's one of the biggest barometers right there is that. If they've had enough, then they're ready to accept the challenge and to get hit in the stomach a couple times and maybe even get hit in the mouth a couple times, but they're tired. They've had enough and they're going to fight.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree 100% on all of it. For all the listeners out there of the Flipping Junkie podcast, can you share with everybody how they can find you?
Yeah, my name is Mitch Stephen. That's the first thing. It's no one offends me if they misspell my name or anything, but it's just I got to get it right from the beginning because we deal in paperwork and stuff, and if I don't get it right from the beginning, it'll be wrong all over the place. My first name is Mitch, M-I-T-C-H. That's the easy part, but my last name is Stephen, like a first name. There's no V in the middle. There's no S on the end. It's S-T-E-P-H-E-N. And you can find me at 1000houses.com. I have a blog there that is very informational. I'd like to. Can I give something away to your people, Danny?
Sure.
If you want to go to 1000houses.com, the first 100 pages of my book is free. My Life in 1,000 Houses: Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. Once you sign up for any free thing, then you'll get a couple of emails from me a week. I don't like to beat people up. Honestly, it goes. I'm going to tell you exactly how it goes because I just like to be straight up with people. It goes content, and a soft offer. Content, and a soft offer. That's how it goes. So there's a lot more contact and very little offer, but it's there for people who are interested in certain topics. And if you ever don't want to be on that list, just hit unsubscribe. So it's real easy. If what I'm talking about doesn't interest you, then of course, we only want interested people there. So 1000houses.com. Also, I wanted to mention my books are now available on iTunes and audible.com. So that if you're not really a person who wants to read or you like to double dip while you're driving and stuck in traffic, you want to take in a book, that's a perfect place to double dip is while you're in your car. So iTunes and audible.com, you can find the two books I have in the My Life in 1,000 Houses series, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, and 200 plus ways to find bargain properties. And also on that site, I offer group coaching, which is every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time on the phone. You can be anywhere in the country or the world if you can just get a phone connection. And then I offer one-on-one mentoring on a very limited basis because I'm the one that answers the phone and deals with everyone. one-on-one, directly you and me. So I can really only take about 12 people at a time. Maybe in 2015, maybe I'll do about 17 people this year. I don't, I'll mentor about 17 people one-on-one. I'm very conscious about who I'm working with. And just because you want to come one-on-one doesn't mean that we're going to do it, because I have to feel like you are in the right aptitude, in the right attitude, and in the right market, and that your goals are something I can help you with. If I don't think I can help you with those goals, then I'll either tell you what we need to do to get you there so I can help you, or I'll tell you that I don't think I'm for you, and we won't waste your money.
Awesome.
I'm very adamant about making sure that people have a super fantastic chance to, make that money pay.
Right. And of course, everybody, we have show notes for the show at FlippingJunkie.com, which is my blog. FlippingJunkie.com will have links, everything that was mentioned, resources mentioned in this episode, links to Mitch's blog and website, and all of the stuff that he just mentioned. So if you forget about some of those things, you know that you could always find it on my blog as well to find links over to him. And you can find that at flippingJunkie.com/podcast/Mitch Steven. And as Mitch said, it's STEPHEN. So it'd be flippingjunkie.com/podcast/Mitch Steven. I really enjoyed the interview with you, Mitch, and I'm glad that you took the time to share all your valuable information with us.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. And good luck to you in this podcast. And if you'll send me a link, I'll post it on my Facebook and stuff, because I think you're doing a great service to the young and veteran investors out there. So I'll do what I can to help push it out.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Mitch. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. And you can visit facebook.com/FlippingJunkie to go to the Flipping Junkie page and leave a message there with whatever's holding you back and any questions that you have about flipping houses. I'd be glad to answer those. And I'm looking for topics for the podcast, so if you have anything that you'd like covered in detail, please go there and visit facebook.com/FlippingJunkie to do so. And be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review on iTunes. Thank you very much, and see you next week.